There it is. It hasn't moved since you went to bed last night. The building's all in the same spot. 7-Eleven. There's a little plug for them. 24 degrees out there. It is chilly. And if you're walking the dog, you got to chip the ice off them. From the state to the city to the MTA, the economic crisis is really punishing every municipal budget. Last week, New York State Governor David Paterson called lawmakers back to Albany to vote on a plan to trim the budget by $2 billion. But instead of a vote, we saw a frustrated governor lash out at a political rival.
You've brought us nothing. You don't have anything on paper to show. You have nothing. We could reduce discretionary spending.
Up. It is nice to see a politician finally calling it like it is. That's Republican State Senator Dean Skelos taking the brunt of the governor's wrath. So what happens now? Wow, I don't know. Those two go in the cage match. Joining us this morning, political commentator from the New York Daily News and morning host on WWRL Radio, Errol Louis. This is kind of like the Jackson 5 without Tito. I'm like, where's the other guy?
Steve? Right.
This is really, I mean, it stretches across every level of government, from the very top to where, the lowest.
Every level of society.
Right, exactly.
Indeed. Yeah, I mean, they're talking about tuition tax hikes for SUNY and CUNY students. They're talking about cutting back service for really basic needs, including subway. Ultimately, it's part of the state budget. And you've got a situation where they're just not even talking. So this is Albany gridlock, as we've always known it, but the stakes are much higher than usual.
When you look at all that has gone on over the past 10 years, 11 years, a lot of people, you're one of them, saw it coming. But it's going to take more than just Barack in there. It's going to take more than just fresh faces in the Senate. It's going to take a long time.
Well, we've got structural problems that the leadership never really wants to deal with. I mean, every time the market goes down, we have an outsized impact on the state budget. And you would think that after years and years of going through this over and over again, there would be something like a rainy day fund, that there would be something like, sort of responsible out-year budgeting, or even an attempt to sort of just rearrange the finances of the state so that we're not so overly dependent on Wall Street. And it always gets talked about, and it never gets done. And so here we are once again.
You've got the big three all looking for a bailout. I've talked to both sides. Some people say, let one of them go down, let some of them go down, we can restructure. And then I've talked to some economic people that really say, you just can't, because it's just, it affects so many people down the line that you got to bail them out even though they don't deserve it.
Well, that's right. Both politically, because as a practical matter, something like 1 million people could really be unemployed in short order if General Motors were to actually declare bankruptcy. And then really they can't recover after a certain point. If a company goes bankrupt, nobody's going to buy those cars. Why would you, take out a 5-year loan on a car not being certain whether or not there'll be any parts or service after 2 or 3 years? So, you get a downward spiral that you can't pull out of. We're going into the retail season. The economists I've talked to have said, look, the next 60 days are actually crucial. Something's got to get done. And so, even though we don't like the CEOs, we don't like the idea of the bailouts.
Taking a jet to the bailout.
Taking jets to Congress to ask for help. Years of pumping out SUVs and fighting against environmentally sensitive, fuel-efficient cars, and on and on and on. We may have to swallow all of that at the top of the company in order to try and rescue not only those at the bottom, but a very broad sector of the economy.
There was an arrogance that they said, no, we're never going to lose this economy. We're never going to lose this group of people that are buying autos. One last thing to touch on, the MTA. If Bill Thompson comes up with a plan today, like he says he's going to, he could run for president tomorrow. I mean, he says he's going to, what, $2 million?
Yeah, listen, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm very curious, like everybody else, to see how this is going to get done. If it's just a matter of swapping out so that some lines get better service and some get worse, that's not a real solution. And, here again, we've been waiting for a report now for months on how to really redo this thing so that we don't have to go through this every time there's a downturn. We pay a higher percentage at the fare box than any big city system in the whole country. And that points to a structural change that has just got to change.
Gotta happen.
I mean, put ads on the outside of the trains. I mean, do whatever you have to do.
Exactly.
But we just can't go through this over and over again.
And we've seen them. They have a budget. They don't have a budget. It's good. It's bad. There's a surplus. There's not a surplus.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so, the MTA doesn't have credibility. Albany doesn't have credibility.
True.
There's a lot of faith now being placed in the new administration in Washington. But here at home, we're still kind of at sea.
All right, bye. Appreciate it as always.
Good to see you.
All right. Steve's probably out making some cash. He needs it, right? Stay with CBS 2, WCBSTV.com for continuing coverage of the economy in crisis and the budget battles facing, as Errol talked about, the state, the city, and the MTA. Mary?